Welcome to the Age Reversing Blueprint podcast, where we discuss tools and tips to help you reverse your age naturally.
I think Zeolite I found it to be more effective and just a great detox tool in general because it's so broad spectrum, for one, and it's gentle and can be used long term. I think those are all important. So, one, it's broad spectrum. I think really the key to detox is the ability to bind to a number of toxic elements. So, when you consider things like chelators, DMPS, DMSA, OSR, EDTA, things that are designed specifically generally for metals, they can go in and grab some of these metals. But if someone has, we never just have metals, right? A lot of times we think that's the issue, whether we got a test and it showed high mercury. But when you have any level of toxicity, you generally have all sorts of other things, environmental toxicants, potentially glyphosate and plastics. And then we also end up with microbial issues, excess candida and parasites and Lyme, potentially excess histamine. Then we have free radical production. All these things are kind of getting out of control. And if we're only addressing one specific element, like a metal, it goes in and can grab this, but then it just stirs things up and it's not addressing the other things. And that's a lot of times why it's so stressful on the body, and the body can't handle that process. So if you're getting a detox reaction, which would be generally a headache, irritability, joint pain, nausea, something negative that happens when you take a detox supplement, most people think, oh, this is great. It means the product or protocol is working. But I think it really means that it's not as efficient of a detox as you want it to be, because it means that now you have a more circulating toxicity than your body can handle. And that's where the symptoms are coming from, because potentially you've moved a metal from tissue into circulation, and now your immune system's attacking it. And that attack resulting in inflammation is now causing too much stress. So if you take something like a zeolite, when used properly, it can bind to more than just the metals in circulation.
All right, so our next guest, I'm really looking forward to. It's Jeff Hoyt. He specializes in developing innovative wellness solutions to meet the needs and the health and wellness of the population. His goal is to help people live healthier and happier lives by making effective, efficient solutions available for health, recovery, and improvement. Jeff believes in challenging the status quo and doing things differently with the goal of getting results that have never been seen before. He's developed a number of innovative brands that are revolutionizing wellness, with a current focus on zeolite and the effective detoxification strategies. So, Jeff, thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely. Happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So what you're referring to is on our Adrenal Fix podcast. We had explained how your body really detoxes and the powerhouse of zeolites. And I want to get into that in a couple moments for the listeners to hear some of the things that they may have missed. But I always like asking a little bit about background about our guest story and how they got into what they got into. And in listening to our prior podcast, I was intrigued because of the health challenges that you had, and then you ended up opening sort of a biohacking suite, and then you found the zeolite product and you felt so strong about it that you kind of went in that direction. So maybe give us some insight on how that transpired and what was going on in your thought process with that.
Sure. So yeah, it started about 15 years ago with the personal health issues, and then conventional medicine didn't work. Started looking into functional medicine, much better. And then I did a little training and started learning about supplements and therapeutic doses and all sorts of stuff, resulting in opening in the biohacking center, the Recharge Clinic, where it was kind of a combination of functional medicine, biohacking, and we had all sorts of fancy technology. So oxygen therapies, molecular hydrogen, infrared, red light, infrared saunas, cryotherapy, PEMF, just all the fun stuff, mostly just things that I wanted for myself. And I figured I'd share them with others as well, just to make the best use of it. So that was all great, getting good results with it. They're kind of things that help regulate the systems of the body. But the challenge is those things almost need to be used consistently. They do need to be used consistently to continue getting the benefits, because they're not removing the underlying causes of dysfunction. So that's when I said, okay, we really need to add something that removes these things. So, it led me to detox. And then I'm looking into detox. I'm saying, okay, most of these protocols are just so harsh, people can't handle them, they're getting terrible reactions, they're not effective, they're not working well. And I came across Zeolite, and I quickly realized that Zeolite was one of the most powerful supplements and detox agents on the market, but also one of the most misunderstood and misused. And that's kind of why I've dedicated the last couple of years to Zeolite education and developing this, what I think is the best Zeolite product on the market, just to kind of provide a product that goes beyond the hype and also provide education on how to use it effectively.
No, that's awesome. And I want to thank you, because today we'll be talking about the studies that you've done and how you were generous enough to allow me to do the studies in my own office. So we have a little bit of case studies and talking about the technology. So that will be exciting to get into, and be excited to explain to the listeners where to get this information on your website, because you've done these studies yourself. And I think that brings a lot of value to the product that you have. As far as, so I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, okay, I want to learn how to reverse my age. I want to learn how to age healthy. I want to make sure that I'm optimizing as best I possibly can. A lot of people will hear about doing a detox, or they do a juice detox, or they do these special types of binders, whether it's charcoal or diatomaceous earth. So let's just sort of maybe go down the rabbit holes of what the zeolite you have is, and what the unique advantage is, and how we start to get into, it's not just about, like you mentioned, it's a foundational protocol for everything that you do. And maybe talk about, which is going to be part 2 of this, will be basically talk about the energetics that are needed to be able to employ a detox strategy. So part 1 would be, what is the type of zeolite that you have, and why do you feel it's the best that's on the market?
Sure. So yeah, first of all, just anyone that's looking into detox, I think, is going in the right direction, because living in the 21st century, we're exposed to so many toxic elements. It's worse than ever. And we really all need to be doing something to support our body's natural detox functions. And then that goes into what you were saying, where we've got juice cleanses, we've got binders, we've got synthetic chelators, we've got all these different things. And what I found is that a lot of people that think they're detoxing with these various methods are actually not. Not that they're not beneficial. It's just that kind of what I discovered through the case studies program is that detox is really up to the body, first of all, right? So we're all detoxing to some capacity with our kidneys or livers or our skin. But in someone that has a complex health challenge, sometimes the body doesn't want to prioritize detox, because as a self-preservation technique, the body says, you know what, I'd rather keep these toxic elements like mercury stored in organs, opposed to trying to get them out. And because as they're leaving, it causes stress on the body. And if that stress is too much for the body to handle, the body keeps them in organs. So that's where detox is actually a little bit different from a healthy person to someone with a more complex challenge. And most of the people that are trying to detox generally have some sort of issue they're trying to resolve. So that's where I found that a lot of times the juice cleanses, the binders, the chelators, especially if they're causing a stressful experience on the body and you're getting symptoms, generally the body's natural detox functions start shutting down to some extent, the natural pathways, because the body doesn't want to release these metals from deeply stored areas. Maybe we can get into more of that later. But with zeolite, I found it to be really the most effective way to remove these deeply stored toxic elements. And quick backtrace, when I say detox, what I've in this context, I'm talking about removing the deeply stored toxic elements, right? So the other things are often very helpful at removing circulating toxins. But a lot of times when I'm talking detox, I'm talking getting the body to dump out the metals from organs. And
I'm going to just interrupt. I think that's a really good, important distinction, because people will do it, Jeff, and they'll feel better, right? And we're not poo-pooing the fact that potentially they're getting rid of processed, artificial, a lot of toxic foods that they might be eating, that finally, for the first time in a long time, they're getting minerals and fiber and even sugar from Mother Nature that can be used very quickly as a twigs or branches for kindling, for igniting, that they can get a good response to it. But I think this is a good dovetail into not just why your zeolite is the best, but how the different like when someone does it, I do think that they want to detox deeper. They have the intention, okay, I'm going to do a juice cleanse. I want to detox at a deeper level than stage 1 and stage 2, which you'll talk about, or type, the different levels, level 1 or level 2. They probably think they're doing a level 3 in that I got toxic stuff. I eat a lot of sushi. I've had mercury amalgams. I know the world is crappy. I have aluminum deodorant, and I'm getting it out by doing this juice cleanse. So thank you for pinpointing that.
Yeah. And just the real thing I learned is that detox is harder than people think. It's more complicated than people think. It goes beyond just taking a single supplement and assuming it's going to go in and rip out all the toxins out of your body in a week or a month or something like that. I think Zeolite I found it to be more effective and just a great detox tool in general because it's so broad spectrum, for one, and it's gentle and can be used long term. I think those are all important. So one, it's broad spectrum. I think really the key to detox is to,
and when you say broad spectrum, what does that mean?
Just its ability to bind to a number of toxic elements. So when you consider things like chelators, DMPS, DMSA, OSR, EDTA, things that are designed specifically generally for metals, they can go in and grab some of these metals. But if someone has, we never just have metals, right? A lot of times we think that's the issue, whether we got a test and it showed high mercury. But when you have any level of toxicity, you generally have all sorts of other things, environmental toxicants, potentially glyphosate and plastics. And then we also end up with microbial issues, excess candida and parasites and Lyme potentially, excess histamine. Then we have free radical production. All these things are kind of getting out of control. And if we're only addressing one specific element like a metal, it goes in and can grab this, but then it just stirs things up and it's not addressing the other things. And that's a lot of times why it's so stressful on the body, and the body can't handle that process. So if you're getting a detox reaction, which would be generally a headache, irritability, joint pain, nausea, something negative that happens when you take a detox supplement, most people think, oh, this is great. It means the product or protocol is working. But I think it really means that it's not as efficient of a detox as you want it to be, because it means that now you have more circulating toxicity than your body can handle. And that's where the symptoms are coming from, because potentially you've moved a metal from tissue into circulation, and now your immune system's attacking it. And that attack resulting in inflammation is now causing too much stress. So if you take something like a zeolite, when used properly, it can bind to more than just the metals in circulation. And it basically makes room for your body to receive these other toxic elements that are dumped into circulation or stirred up through the process. So I think broad spectrum is really key. And it can be done with potentially a number of other supplements, but you might have to take 5, 6, 7, 8 other supplements where zeolite can do the job all by itself.
Today's show is brought to you by Zeocharge, the supercharged zeolite that we're talking to you about on today's show. This is the bottle that you can see right here. Each scoop delivers 5 grams, which is 5,000 milligrams. It is a very pure, very concentrated, micronized, cleaned, remineralized zeolite that we are talking to you about. And if you're looking to try this product, then I have an offer to get a 10% off discount link. Just use the code DrJoel10, DrJoel10, and we will provide the link underneath the podcast wherever there is information. And let's get back to the podcast. That's a really great point. Yeah. Thank you. And I think that, just as an aside too, like I kind of get a little bit of shivers when I hear people that they're doing a chelation therapy and they're really constitutionally weak, and it's the first thing that they go after, and it is a non-selective, or it's a very specific binder that more than anything, like you're waking up sleeping dogs, right? And you're bringing a knife to the gunfight. You're underpowered, and your immune system has been proven to be able to tag something that it wasn't tagging before. And now that you've developed potentially a neurological or some kind of autoimmunity against different tissues because you recirculated that toxin. So whoever is listening to this, whether you're gonna approach it with getting a very generalized broad spectrum zeolite or not, you have to really consider all the variables before you do something like this.
Yeah, and I have two comments on that. One thing that's important for people to understand is what makes zeolite so special is that it's a smart binder or selective binder, meaning while it's this negatively charged volcanic mineral that goes in and it starts like a magnet attracting positively charged toxic elements. And then some people would say, well, why isn't it also depleting essential minerals? Well, most other binders and chelators are, which is why they're stressful on the body and can't generally be used long term, which is usually needed for an efficient detox. Zeolite, when proper, a good quality zeolite that's been remineralized, naturally has electrolytes in its cage-like structure. So it kind of looks like a zeolite honeycomb cage. It's got, potassium, magnesium, sodium, calcium in its cage. When it comes across a more toxic or heavier element like a mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic, it trades the essential mineral for the more toxic element. So when it comes across another essential mineral, something like silicone, it'll just leave it alone because it already has what it prefers. And we can prove that through our case studies, but basically it's not going to go in and directly bind to everything. It's smart or selective, meaning it's only grabbing to the toxic elements, which I think really sets it apart from other methods on the market. And then I have another comment, if I may.
Oh, go please.
I don't want to forget this. So
Yes.
because this is I've actually, because I was in the past a pretty big fan of some of the synthetic chelators. And I was thinking, these things, there's some good research, they're very strong bonds to various metals. But I've since discovered that I honestly think that our zeolite powder, Zeocharge, is more effective than any synthetic chelator I found, even for metals. And it's not because it has a stronger bind directly to the metals, but it's the broad spectrum ability and a number of other things. But one thing to consider, and this is where some people get led astray, when we look at the research, let's say we have to consider that someone that's relatively healthy, that was just exposed to mercury, is going to respond differently to a chelator than someone who has bioaccumulated mercury over 25 years, potentially from having the silver amalgam fillings in their mouth or some other exposure, because it's really up to the body to let go. And what most people think is synthetic chelators and other detox agents can just go in and grab these metals from any tissue, anywhere in the body that they want. But the truth is, if the body doesn't want to let go of that metal, it's not going to let go. And then you have to ask yourself, well, why wouldn't it want to let go? And that goes back to the defense mechanism. So if you were just exposed to mercury, let's say you were poisoned, you take a synthetic chelator, something like OSR, incredibly strong bond to mercury. In the studies, it can go in, grab it from the brain, and remove it safely, all this stuff. So if you were just exposed, you take it, fantastic. But people that have accumulated this mercury over 30 years from the fillings, they take it and it doesn't work that way. It doesn't remove the mercury from the tissue. Why is that? It's because the body's retention of the mercury is stronger than the binding capacity of the chelator. If we fight against the body, we're going to lose. That's why our detox, we want to work with the body, not against it. So in those individuals, the key is to encourage the body to naturally dump these metals from the tissue. And that's where zeolite can be more effective, because it's so broad spectrum that it's grabbing the things floating around in circulation, basically making room for these other toxic elements to be dumped into circulation and safely removed from the body.
Right. No, thank you. And we talked a little bit before we got started here on the other binders, or charcoal and diatomaceous earth. They've been around for a lot longer, and perhaps zeolite has, but it's advanced in its technology and its utility. So explain why not all zeolites, even if they are clinoptilolite, are not created equal, and what they need to really be looking for.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, zeolite has been around just as long as all the others, just not in a supplement form, right? They're all from the earth in some capacity. It's been there, volcanic mineral, but yeah, it's only been around for a couple of decades in terms of supplements. And since then, the technology has enhanced so much. That's what makes it so incredible. So basically, one, it's the particle size with just zeolite, right? We can take it and we can use a micronization process, which is a slicing motion, and basically make the zeolite particles as small as we want. And that allows for a full body detox, opposed to just a GI binder like most of the other things. And even with various zeolites, traditionally, you have the powders that are going to be just used for GI binders. But now we have the micronization to allow it to be smaller. And we actually have multiple particle sizes in our product, which is one of the things that makes it unique. So we've got kind of a combination of small particles and larger particle sizes. One, we want a GI binder, and two, we want a full body detox effect. So on the market, there's kind of most people that are familiar with zeolite will say, well, there's all these products, you've got powders, you've got liquids, what's the difference, right? Why is yours better? So you've got the liquid zeolites, first off, liquid zeolite is just powdered zeolite mixed with water. So there's no such thing as by nature liquid zeolite, right? Zeolite is a mineral, it's like a big rock, you crush it. Now, a lot of the liquid zeolite companies just take a powder and mix a very minute amount with water and call it liquid zeolite, just to take advantage of marketing trends. There's a number of those, unfortunately, on the market. Now, the more reputable brands further micronize the zeolite to make them very small particles. And their intention is, well, we want a full body detox, which makes sense, right? That's great. And I see the benefit to that. And then you have the other zeolite powders that are just staying in the gut to act as a binder. And there's benefits to that as well. So when I started Zeolite Labs, I said, I want to combine the benefits of both. Because some people were actually taking liquids and powders and mixing various products together to get this range of particles. So I said, well, we can just turn this into one product. So Zeocharge was born. We took the best of the liquid products, the best of the powders, and we put it into one product. And then, of course, we have the purity and all the other stuff. But that's kind of how Zeocharge was born, combining the best of the other products. And then we've got the third-party testing, the purity. There's a lot of things that need to be considered with zeolite, and we've kind of addressed them all to just develop the best product.
No, it's great. And like I mentioned in our previous conversation, that I had tried one of those, and whether it was a reputable company and it was mixed and it was small particle, talk about the actual potency of it all, and right, why the amount that you're getting matters.
Right. And that's really the challenge with a lot of the liquids, is that because they are powders mixed with water, even if they're the best quality in the world, very small particle sizes, you're getting very low doses. So for example, most of the liquids on the market range from about 1 milligram to sometimes up to 24, but usually they're around 2, 3, 4 milligrams per serving. And for reference, Zeocharge, one scoop is 5,000 milligrams.
Right.
So you're getting over 1,000 times the dose on the Zeocharge powder opposed to the liquid. Now that's right, significant because a lot of people, and I understand, they're saying, okay, well, a lot of people can't handle detox well, so we'll just mix this powder with water and we'll start slow and you just take it long term, and it's a slow approach. The challenge with that is that I discovered that taking a higher dose of zeolite is actually gentler on your body, not to mention more effective than a low dose. So it's basically, there's a dosing paradox with zeolite. So instead of starting slow and low and working your way up, I recommend, with Zeocharge at least, starting with a high dose and working your way down. And just as an example, and this I've got a 14-page theory on the mechanisms of action behind this on the Zeolite Labs website under the education tab. But just some people will mix a little bit of Zeocharge with a glass of water, and they'll just take one sip just because they wanted to see what happens, right? And those people oftentimes get the headaches, get the irritability, get the symptoms. Then the next day, they'll drink the entire glass, right? With the 5,000 milligrams, no symptoms at all, or they feel better. So it's not that the low dose or the liquids is working better. It's just that it's not working as efficiently, because when you detox, you don't want to feel anything, or you want to feel better. The detox reactions are a sign that it's just an inefficient detox.
Right. And like you said, typically the people that you see that are the worst of the worst, they're tempering their approach because they're concerned, obviously, that they don't want to have that ill feeling. And so that's where you can see they'd be told not to do it, not to just go slow and slow, and you're not bringing enough water pressure, as I like to say, to put out the fire. But then on the flip side, people would say, well, if it's an aluminum silicone kind of bond, am I going to be concerned that I could get aluminum toxicity when that particle breaks? And so tell us what you've done with that and why your product works effectively and that's not a concern.
Sure, absolutely. And first, I just want to say, don't just randomly try various doses with any zeolite product. That's not what I'm suggesting. This has been studied with Zeocharge, not with the others, because if you take, let's say, 5 milligrams of a liquid and it stirs things up and makes you feel worse, and then you take 10 milligrams, it's probably going to make you even worse. There's kind of a threshold, right? So my
you have to be a certain amount above and beyond.
and you usually can't get it with a list. So I just want to say that. But
yeah,
one of the main concerns with zeolite is that people say, well, this is made of silicone and aluminum. It's an aluminosilicate by nature. And they say, so isn't this going to leach aluminum into my body and cause toxicity? And it's a legitimate concern. Now, we can prove, we're the only company that can prove that Zeocharge does not cause aluminum toxicity. And we're testing on the tissue level. There's no tissue accumulation of aluminum. You can see it on our case studies page. And in fact, it has an aluminum detoxing effect. Now, zeolite is a class of mineral. It's a broad term. Not all zeolites are the same. You've got synthetic zeolites for one, and then you've got natural. So first off, when you're looking at a supplement or just zeolite, you have to consider, is this natural or not? Some of the liquid products in the market are not even natural. And one of the synthetic zeolites has been studied, and it has been shown to actually cause aluminum accumulation in organs. So there is a legitimate concern here depending on the product. So you want a natural product. You want to make sure that the zeolite you're using is clinoptilolite. So that's the form of zeolite that's been studied for human health and shown to be safe. The main reason that form was chosen is because it's got a very high silicone to aluminum ratio. And that ratio is what determines the stability of the structure. So a lot of other forms of zeolite, if you were to consume, would break down in your body and yes, could potentially cause aluminum toxicity. Clinoptilolite, because of its strong structure, goes in the body. It doesn't break down. It doesn't degrade. It simply passes through, grabbing toxic elements and making its way out. The higher the silicone to aluminum ratio, the more stable. And Zeocharge is actually the highest silicone to aluminum ratio I've ever seen. It's got 74.8% silicone, which is very, very high. And that can be seen in our chemical composition. So in general, it's even more safe than the others, but all clinoptilolite should be safe. It shouldn't be breaking down in your body.
Right. And just for kicks and giggles, you'd figure you would do a full canister of your own to show. How long did you do that for? 30 days? You
right.
Did yeah.
Well, I did that. So, and that's the other thing. Most of these, some of these trials where there was accumulation, like these are low doses where they accumulate. And some of the liquids, there's been some concern with some practitioners where they've seen some accumulation of metals from various liquid products, potentially, I don't know why, but whether they're synthetic or not. But with Zeocharge, some of our case studies are on very high doses and it's not accumulating aluminum. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of times the dose and still no accumulation. So for myself, I took a jar a day, as you mentioned, right? So that's 150 grams. That's 150,000 milligrams compared to a lot of times you're getting 1 milligram, 2 milligrams, right? So
they're in micrograms. So you added another 3 zeros.
Yeah. So some of the products you get 300 micrograms,
700 micrograms
per serving.
Yeah.
So for example, 6 scoops, which a lot of the case studies was on 6 tablespoons. That's 30,000. That's 300,000 micrograms. That's exactly 100,000 times the dose of a serving of a lot of the liquids.
Right.
So you can kind of see, what's going on here. But with that dose, we're still seeing no aluminum accumulation. And in myself, I did 10 days because I that's a lot of zeolite to be consuming, 150 grams. It's a lot of water to be drinking. It's a lot of powder, but I actually ended up losing 5 pounds during that and going to the bathroom way more. So kind of interesting. But during the 10 days, I tested myself on the tissue level to start with, retested after 10 days, and there was no accumulation of aluminum. Actually reduced a tiny bit, but yeah, nothing went up.
Right. And that's a good segue too, Jeff, in terms of what is this tissue testing that you're doing? I do have it here. It's the Oligoscan. I'm sure people have heard about that before, where you have 4 different points in your hand and it's measuring what you're saying is the tissue level of metals or toxic elements in your body. And then we can share the screen in a moment and show my results. I'm, just like a lot of my patients, I'm not 100% compliant. So unfortunately, that last month wasn't as bang on as it should have been. But it's a good intro in terms of what are the 3 different layers of toxicity and how does the tissue test through the Oligoscan sort of differentiate those?
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, I developed a theory on 3 levels of detox, or 3 levels of toxin storage, basically. And I think when you're going on any sort of detox protocol, there's layers of an onion, right? Layer 1 is going to be circulating toxins. So let's say, just for example, you're exposed to a significant amount of mercury, right? Maybe you ate like 5 pounds of fish or so, I don't know. You're exposed to a bunch of mercury. You've got this mercury floating around. It's in level 1 right away. And that's where your body's natural detox functions are always focused. Level 1, right? You're trying to excrete this stuff out of the body through normal detox. But whatever your body can't get rid of, it has to do something with. Because when it's in level 1, it's being attacked by the systems of the body. It's causing, a strong immune response, which then equals inflammation and all sorts of symptoms. It's very stressful. So the body says, I'm going to get rid of what I can. And the healthier you are, the more you can get rid of. But whatever can't be dealt with immediately, the body says, we need to put this into storage. So basically it goes to level 2 toxicity, right? And that's going to be a general tissue area, just general fat, belly fat, just tissue throughout the body. And I consider that a holding area for the toxins, where the body puts it there. It says, we'll keep it there for safekeeping, because it's protected from the immune system at this point. So your body's not attacking it as much. Now, you don't want it long-term, but it's okay short-term. So then if the body's able to kind of make enough room in level 1, it'll release the level 2 holding area toxins mercury back into level 1 and get it out. Now, some people never get to that point because they've got so much going on a daily basis. Now, if level 2 fills up your holding area, now you've got level 1 full and level 2 full. It has to go somewhere else. Now we're into level 3, and that's what I would consider deep storage. And that's generally going to be your organs and just deep tissues. And once the metals get there, that's when it becomes especially challenging to get rid of them, because the body just becomes comfortable with them there. And basically you have to remove metals from both levels 1 and all sorts of toxicity from levels 1 and level 2 in order to make room for your body to push the level 3 metals back in to level 2. So that's where it goes back to the chelation. Sometimes it's limited, because if you have these level 3 metals and you take a chelator and it goes in and tries to grab it, if your body says level 1 and level 2 are too full, I can't handle the stress of detox, it's not going to let go. And basically, at that point, the chelator is really only working on level 1. And it's working in a limited capacity because it's only binding the metals. So that's, once again, Zeocharge can be very effective because it's binding to all these things in level 1, then level 2 and level 3 get dumped, and it's kind of a layers approach.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, so I was just going to say, so it's a great way for you to put things together. And I think that you're not limiting all that's involved with level 1 and level 2. You're just kind of simplifying it. But for those that are listening, the other things that are involved for level 1 to work, obviously, is you have to have your liver, your kidney, your lungs, your skin, all of your lymphatics and your digestive juices flowing, and everything needs to be working effectively. And if you have not just the body burden of the toxic things that you want to detoxify, but you have issues with combusting energy or making energy by combining the food you eat with the air you breathe and making energy, and then you have a stressful life, a stressful job, finances, kids, all of the above, you only have a certain amount of what I call biochemical income to be able to spread around and make processes happen in the body. And like you said, it's more for survival than thrival. And ultimately what happens is there's only so much that those downstream detox systems can allow level 1 and level 2 to get out of the body in the first place, to be able to even think about getting into level 3. That back to our initial juice cleanses are good for what they are, but you have to be healthy to detox. And that's why this is such a good idea for not just a standalone product on its own, but whatever constitutional or basic or foundational stuff that you're doing, it's only going to be complementing what you're doing. So I didn't mean to interrupt you on that, Jeff.
No, that's absolutely. And I do consider, I'm not a person that says Zeocharge or Zeolite's the only thing you ever need, right? It's a foundation. It's a great addition to whatever protocol you're using. And I do want to kind of comment what I think happens when you experience a detox reaction, and it might be a good understanding. So basically, I think for one, it could just be all in level one, where you take something, it stirs things up in level one. Potentially, you have biofilms that have, parasites in them, various metals. You break that biofilm apart, you've disrupted things, you're getting symptoms.
And
That's one
because that
possibility.
biofilm, like it's so amazing, the matrix in the body, it's like a little matrix movie going on in the body. And you have these biofilms. And I explain to people, it's kind of like if you had a party at your house and you had all the people you grew up with, they're in the backyard that came to your party. And then the neighbors are in the kitchen. And then the people that you go to work with are maybe in the family room. And as the party starts to get loose and everything starts to get good, everyone starts to coalesce together. But the amazing thing in this, so that's what a biofilm would be, with parasites and bacteria and mycotoxins and nanobacteria and viruses. But the crazy thing is that it's able to reinforce that biofilm with little sheets of heavy metal and so forth. So when you take, say, like a zeolite, and you don't have enough water pressure behind that, you're punching these little holes in these biofilms and you're kicking up the ocean. You're really stirring up the hornet's nest, if you will. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what happens.
Yeah, because it only takes a very small amount of zeolite, even from a liquid, to go in and disrupt these biofilms. And now you've kind of made a mess, but you need extra to clean up that mess, right?
Right.
Everything else
Yeah.
stops. So that's why. So we're just still talking level one here. Sometimes maybe stuff in level two gets dumped into level one, because level one is your threshold. Whatever, if your body can't handle what's in level one, it's not going to get to the other levels. So that's kind of the challenge. So some people, what happens is they're doing cleanses, they're taking zeolite, they're doing whatever, and they're getting the symptoms. They think they're detoxing, but they're all in level one still. It's all circulating, and they're never getting to the deeper levels because you have to clear level one first, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So why don't you maybe show us,
Yeah.
so you lent me the Oligoscan, and then I did one, I think 5 weeks later and then 6 weeks later.
Yep. Should I quickly, I've got it pulled up, show that how detox the 4 over a month to kind of give an
Yeah,
indicator? Would that be
absolutely.
helpful?
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
show that really quick. Let me share the screen and then we'll move to yours. This might help people when I'm trying to say, maybe poorly communicating it, but it might help visually show them what I'm talking about.
No, you're doing a good job of explaining
All right.
things.
Is this the share? All right. Can we see that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I tested this individual 4 different times over a month. So every 7 days, because I wanted to see kind of how the body was processing these metals. So the initial test was in gray on top, and then the colored was 1 week later. So you can see that most of the metals are actually rising, which indicates that's good, because the initial test is the tissue of your hand. We're measuring the metals in the tissue of your hand. When the levels rise, and I would consider
Which
that,
would be level 1 and 2, Jeff, or just level 1?
I would say mostly level 2, potentially
Level
some
2.
level 1.
I
But
see.
yeah,
Right.
it's a combination, because the device is testing what's 4 millimeters deep into the hand. So it could be hitting some blood. It could be hitting things on the way, mostly tissue, mostly cellular, but it's just whatever it hits on the way down 4 millimeters deep into the hand. So mostly level 2, some level 1. But as the level rises, that means that these metals are coming from level 3. So they're coming from deep storage and they're making their way into the hand, and they're then preparing to go out later. So this is a good sign. You want the levels to go up. So that's week 1. The next week, the levels are even higher. So they crept up a little bit because the body was pushing them out. And now week 2, the body's pushing more of them out. And we also want to see how is the body responding. So we look at the vitamins. All of the vitamins were greatly improved. So this was from 2 scoops a day. So that's 10 grams of Zeocharge. He's not taking anything else. He's not taking any of these supplements. His vitamin levels are improving strictly from the Zeocharge because it was reducing a stress on his body while detoxing. He felt nothing the whole time, which is what you want. All right, this is what I wanted to show you, though. That's after 2 weeks. He's detoxing more, deeply stored metals. But then the next week, see how the metals started going down? And he expressed to me that his son got pretty sick and he was exposed to the sun, coughing, sneezing, all that stuff. This individual never felt anything. but you can tell that his immune system was triggered to some capacity. One, because now all of his vitamins are down. So his body is using additional resources to fight something, whatever that may be. His immune markers have just activated. Copper, zinc, indicating an immune response, are now higher. And his body stopped detoxing. So now he's taking the same amount. He's still taking 10 grams this entire time, but it just shows you that it's not about the zeolite's ability to go in and directly grab metals from tissue. It's about the body's willingness to release. The first 2 weeks, his body had enough energy to release those metals with the support of the Zeocharge. But then we enter week 3, his body was preoccupied by another stressor, so his body stopped detoxing. That's why we see a reduction. It's kind of a cleanup phase.
Right. And just as an aside, had you not had the vitamin status there and his feedback, which is credence to the important point of asking and talking to your patient. So again, this is not my case study. This is one where Jeff happened to do 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks in a row to just kind of see how these numbers changed. But potentially, if this person was doing better, they didn't get sick, and their vitamin status had continued to improve, but the markers had started to come down, that's where you have a different impression of, okay, perhaps that we've got enough of that deep layer in storage coming out into level 2 that we don't need more, we don't have any more to come out. Is that accurate
Right.
to say?
Right. So after 2 weeks, and then, I mean, at this point, you would say it's possible he got everything out, but he had a number of fillings in his mouth. He was 72. He'd never done a detox protocol. So we have to imagine there's more mercury than that. And we're going to see that here. Because now the next week, as he's recovered internally, the mercuries are coming up again. So yeah, he did in fact have more metals. His body just took a break from detoxing to deal with the current threat. And then he started recovering and the vitamins improved again.
I mean, that's an important lesson for you. If you're wanting to detox, don't get focused in on shiny objects. If you have major stressors going on in your life, you're releasing cortisol. Now, all of a sudden, you've said to your body from a stress response, I want you to prioritize spending whatever income we're making on dealing with the mechanics of the stress response and not going back to releasing the metals that we were sort of copacetic with and chilled out about. Now we can't do that because we have a better demand in our worse demand or increased demand in our body.
Yep. And I think that alone is one of the most important concepts to understand with detox, is that it's up to your body, for one. So 10 people could be taking the same supplement, 5 could be detoxing, 5 could not, right? So let's say someone that has chronic Lyme, chronic infections, chronic elevated cortisol from various stressors, all these different things, their body is not going to have the energy to focus on detox. I call it detox energy, right? So because the thing about the other things is they're more immediate threats. With the toxins, the body has a natural storage unit for them. It can put them into fat. That's why a lot of times people become so toxic, and people get these tests and they say, I'm sick because I have high mercury or something else. But in reality, a lot of times they have high levels of these because of another factor, right? The elevated cortisol from whatever it may be, or other issues. And their body hasn't been able to prioritize detox potentially for years. So every little bit of metal that comes in, their body just jams it into storage.
Right. And if
so the
you're
key
having
is to address it all.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying the key is to address it all. So the key to detox is getting as healthy as you can be.
Right. Yeah. And I was just going to say, like, for a lot of people that are tired and exhausted and feel toxic, another woe of theirs is they're not able to release the weight. We have weight loss resistance. And that's sort of a microcosm of the fact that your body just doesn't have the energy or downstream mechanics to take on the release of those toxins that are stored in the fat.
Yeah. A lot of people that have excess body fat actually have higher general tissue levels of the metals, which is actually a good thing because it means they're in the general tissue and not in the organs.
Right.
And that's one reason a lot of people have a difficult time losing weight, because their body doesn't want to let go of that natural storage unit. Because if you lose the weight, it mobilizes these metals and other toxins. Then they have to make their way to organs if they can't be excreted, and it can be very toxic. So detox is definitely a foundation to any weight loss protocol, in my opinion.
For sure.
Should we get to your results?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So we'll start with the metals. So first off, this was 5 weeks. So and how much were you taking?
I was taking a little more than two scoops a day, 2 tablespoons, probably probably 3 to 4. I had a measuring error, which was worked out in my favor.
Right. You always want to err on the side of a higher dose. And you
Right.
experienced, did you feel anything negatively
So,
or
I mean, I did
positively?
notice, like I was saying, my coating of my tongue, which tends to be more white because of amalgams and antibiotics as a kid, up and just the wazoo all the time. But I did feel just, what, another thing too was more satiated, right? Just feeling like I'm fuller, faster, and of course a lot more energy.
Yeah. Well, good. So, and what I tell people when you're removing deeply stored metals, so when we're talking a level 3 detox, which is what we're talking here, you either want to feel nothing or you want to feel better. So we already kind of talked about you don't want to feel worse because it means it's stressing out your body. And then your body with that stress is going to shut down its pathways. Now, sometimes you feel better. Sometimes you feel nothing. Either way, it's a good sign. So sometimes it takes a couple months to feel better. Sometimes you feel better right away. Now, looking at the results, we see the baseline in gray, and we see 5 weeks later, the color. So you can see how the metals are coming up, which means they're coming out. Because when you'd rather have these metals, you'd rather have mercury in your hand than in your brain, right? So they're
Right.
coming out of organs, level 3. They're making their way to general tissue to then be excreted from the bodies. And this is a significant mercury dump. A lot of people don't even start releasing mercury for a couple months into the detox because it's so stressful. Some people will release every other metal, but not mercury. And just note that you have basically every metal stored in your body. The only one that didn't rise is gadolinium. So you basically have all this stuff stored, and that's not uncommon, right? So the point is, with the support of the Zeocharge, your body said, now we're going to release some of this mercury and other metals, and now it's higher on the test, which is great. And relating to, the coating on the tongue, a lot of times when you remove mercury, then that helps with yeast issues because yeast and mercury kind of connect to each other. And a lot of people experience some sort of effect there with the tongue and various things. But we want to, okay, so right off the bat, we say, yes, the detox is working, right? It's an effective detox. We're removing deep level metals. Great. Then we want to say, how efficiently is it working with your body? And we check your vitamins. And your vitamins are actually mostly improved. They're not worse. Because a lot of times when you start detoxing, even if you don't experience symptoms, that would definitely be a sign it's stressful. Sometimes it still stresses out your body and lowers the vitamin levels because your body has to use additional resources during the detox process to stay balanced. In your case, it actually raised your levels, meaning that it was reducing the total stress load on your body. So overall, this is a really good sign. Then we go to the minerals. Overall, the minerals are actually starting to balance a little bit. Some things like the chromium's a little worse, the phosphorus is a little worse. Sometimes the minerals will temporarily get a little bit unbalanced just as you're stirring so much stuff up. I mean, this mercury has potentially been stored in tissue for many years, right? So the fact that you felt nothing and we really didn't have any significant damage, or I mean, there's no damage, but no significant impairment of minerals or vitamins is a really good sign. So that's the first 5 weeks. So then we go to the next 6 weeks. So you test it again 6 weeks later, and it doesn't look like there's a lot going on. So some of them are still rising a little bit. Some of them are coming down a little bit. And it's possible, because you mentioned you were a little bit inconsistent at this point, you skipped a few doses. It's possible that it became a little bit stressful on your body because now still about the same, the vitamins, so not too stressful, but you're getting some mineral disturbances. So the magnesium went down, phosphorus, silicone, so potentially a little bit of redistribution of the metals. And I will say it is the sulfur is worse. So your body's having to use extra natural resources during the detox, potentially from skipping doses of Zeocharge. Because once you start taking Zeocharge and you've opened up these pathways and you're dumping these metals from deeply stored areas, and then if you just suddenly stop or you miss a couple doses, your body has to deal with that on its own. And that's what can become very stressful. So a lot of people will try it for like 3 days, stop, and then they feel terrible. So really, right, that's a key point. Once you start, you really don't want to stop.
To be committed. It's like taking an antibiotic. Yeah. Not that we recommend taking antibiotics, but they tell you need to finish the dose for doing that. Just as an aside on that, this one we're looking at here, my second reading 6 weeks later, I believe I mean I've been getting a lot of mileage and on the road running and jogging and walking. So I think I was sweating out a lot as well. And so the combined not being super compliant along with probably losing a lot of water and being dehydrated could have caused that result. And what I'll be doing is being consistent again, and then in another 4 weeks, see where we're at.
Yeah, and it's also possible, because this is over 6 weeks, it's possible that these levels continued rising for another 3 weeks, and then they made their way back
Right.
down.
That's a good point.
So we really don't know. It's just hard to say. But what we know, the most important thing was the first test, and we saw that the dose you were on, the 2 scoops, was sufficient for you to get your body to release deeply stored metals.
Right.
Now, from our case studies, people can see that some people need more than the 2 scoops to get their body to this point. It just depends. The healthier you are, the less you need. The more complex your health challenge, if you've got mycotoxins, you've got various infections, you've got all sorts of stressors, the more stressors you have, the more you're going to need to combat those various stressors to get your body to the point to feel comfortable to release metals. So
right.
if you think you're in that boat with more of a complex issue and your body doesn't detox that well, you're always going to want to start with the higher dose, usually around 6 scoops, honestly, is ideal. And then you can work your way down. So we've got the program, right? 6 scoops the first month, 5 scoops the second month, 4, 3, 2. Start high.
Which is what you call the ultimate zeolite experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Because the challenge is, and this is what is concerning for me, and I didn't realize most of this before we did the case studies, is that a lot of people have been taking various detox products, including zeolites, good zeolites, even Zeocharge, and they think that they're removing deeply stored metals, and they could take these things for 10 years and not ever remove a deeply stored metal. So let's say, because the key is you have to consider your daily dose of toxins, right? That's the amount of toxicity that you're exposed to on a daily basis. And those are new, they're regenerative, right? They're new every day. So that's going to be from external exposure, food or air, cosmetics, whatever, and then also from internal production. So we have most of the toxins we're exposed to are actually internally produced toxins, things like metabolic waste products and microbial waste products. So if we're just not as healthy as we should be, and let's say our liver is not working properly or our kidneys, then we get a buildup of some of these metabolic waste products like ammonia, right? So if your liver's not working, ammonia builds up, it can go to your brain, be neurotoxic, etc. Kidney's not working, urea, and so forth. So some people are at max capacity on a daily basis from their daily dose. And let's say you take 1 scoop of Zeocharge, and let's say that's 5,000 milligrams. It is 5,000 milligrams. Let's say that's 5,000 little zeolite soldiers going in, right? If you've got 5,000 toxic invaders that are being regenerated every single day in your body, the whole scoop of Zeocharge is going to be used just for your daily dose of toxins. So you could take that for 10 years, and you're not actually detoxing levels 2 or 3, because it's helping you greatly, right? It's going to be very helpful. It can improve your vitamin status. It can make you feel better because you're relieving the stress on the body in level 1, but you might need to get to 2 scoops just to start getting to the next level, or 3
it's
or
like
4.
debt. You got to pay more than just the interest payments, right? I mean,
exactly.
you never get out of debt.
Yeah. And that's why, and that goes back to some of the liquids. I think this is an important key, because a lot of people say, I need the liquid because, it's nano-sized or whatever it may be. But just because it's nano-sized and supposedly it crosses the blood-brain barrier, that doesn't mean it's ever going to get there. Because if it's getting to the gut, it's going to be all used up in the gut before it has a chance to even get into circulation, because it's a low dose. And if it's liposomal, potentially it's able to, bypass digestion. But even then, if your body doesn't want to let go, just like with the chelators, it's not going to let go.
Right.
So anyway, the point is, start with the higher dose, work your way down, just to make sure you're actually detoxing.
Yeah, and what I really like about it too is, which I've recommended to plenty of my patients that I work with, is the fact that it can get those. It's a general, what do you call it, a selective, a non-selective, or selective
binder.
Selective binder. Yeah. Smart binder, so that you can bind ammonia, histamine. I would wonder if it would bind lactic acid. Do you know if it would do that as well?
There is one study actually showing that. And then, yeah,
Right.
I'll mention a few of the things it does bind to, because I'm sure people are curious. But
Right.
yeah, there's a study with athletes, and they were taking. I think the study actually showed that zeolite at about 2 grams was improving leaky gut status, repairing the gut lining. But there was, maybe this was a different study, but yeah, the lactate it was able to reduce and improve recovery time in athletes, and they were taking the zeolite post workout when there was more of these metabolic waste products produced. And
That's
another
awesome.
thing, when you're working out, you're going to be producing free radicals just from the workout process. And zeolite can actually trap and neutralize free radicals in its cage.
That's interesting. Yeah, it'd be interesting because I've just been doing some more research on the Randall cycle, which is more about, is your body processing too much fats and beta oxidation with too much extra fuel left over in sugars and high fructose corn syrup, which is 88% or more of metabolically sick Americans. And the challenge with that is that the the breakdown of energy production causes massive amounts of lactic acid, right? So seeing the zeolite as, and I guess maybe you've known the history. I mean, does the history go back through millennia in terms of binders and being used by other, just sort of ancient societies?
Yeah, I mean, binders have been used for a long. I mean, there's even like clay eating people where they live off of clay alone. And
Right,
so I mean, zeolite has been used for probably thousands of years, just not in a supplement form. Just
right.
people that have found kind of like deposits that have small amounts of zeolite. Of course, it's not going to be as good, but there's still benefits. So just in general, binders are very effective. They've been used forever. It's just now we've taken that superfood and we've used science to combining. So I say we take science plus superfoods and we get the solutions. So we have just an advantage now with some of the scientific breakthroughs where we can make the zeolite just exponentially more powerful than it is just by nature.
Right. Are you doing more studies, Jeff?
So we've got that. So the case studies program was one just to kind of figure out, because I don't want to be selling a product that wasn't good. I wanted to make sure it could actually remove metals. And we saw that it can remove metals from tissue, and it removed all 15 toxic metals we tested it for. So that's incredible. And we saw that generally it improves vitamin status, doesn't directly bind to minerals, doesn't cause aluminum toxicity. Because if we're being honest, I wasn't 100% sure about the aluminum because I heard so much stuff and even practitioners saying like, oh, I'm concerned about aluminum. So that's why the main reason we did the case studies. Now, beyond that, now we're looking to do some additional studies. So right now, a study is actually being conducted. It's a pilot study with eight individuals, but an MD is testing 8 of his patients for, they're taking 10 grams a day of the Zeocharge. They did a pre-test with fecal metals and also urine metals. And then they're going to do a post-test. So because we have the tissue levels, but we're going to get some additional data. We're also doing something called the Zeolite sip challenge, where people are volunteering to take a sip of the Zeocharge and measure reactions. And if they get a negative reaction, they'll take the full glass the next day and see if they get no reaction. So just a way just to show people that yes, the higher dose definitely is better. And then we're also looking into doing a glyphosate study just to show that zeolite can remove glyphosate from the body and a number of other things. So yeah, definitely we're in the beginning stages. We just wanted to have the baseline case studies to make sure it was safe and effective to put on market. But now we want to kind of just continue legitimizing it and showing exactly what this thing can do.
That's awesome. Lots of potential there. So the website is Zeolite Labs, right? All one word. And if you use Dr. Joel 10, that will get you 10% off. And I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. We got to figure out what to do for part 3. Maybe I'll be more consistent with my testing. As far as, I guess, do you have any specific case that, or doctor or personal story of someone that's used your product that has some astounding or phenomenal uncanny results?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's kind of amazing. There's a lot of them. I mean, just the one lady was bedridden, and this was just recent. She was actually in her case studies, was bedridden for years, couldn't work, having issues, working with practitioners, not getting great results, and just adding the Zeocharge. After 6 months, she was back to work. She lost 20 pounds. Just amazing. I mean, stuff like that. A lot of people take it for just calming down the nervous system, calming down the immune system. I think that's the people that experience the most profound benefits immediately are people that are exposed to potentially mycotoxins or some sort of very immunostimulating agent on a daily basis. And if they can calm their system down through the use of the proper use of zeolite, that's incredible. I mean, there's tons of people who were previously taking liquid zeolites. I mean, even someone this week that I spoke with was taking a liquid zeolite for a number of months and maybe even a month, because she had to go on and off it because she couldn't tolerate it. And she just, she could only do like 12 days a month, was feeling worse. And she actually had this test conducted, the Oligoscan, because she had used a practitioner and nothing was changing. And then she started Zeocharge and started feeling better immediately. And she said that her digestion, she's never been able to regulate it. And this is a practitioner that's very knowledgeable, never been able to regulate it. On the first 3 days, her chronic constipation was gone. And I tested her again, and this was just last week. I tested her again after 10 days of use on Zeocharge, and her metals were rising. So she's dumping them, and everything was working well, and she was feeling better. And this was after taking the liquid. She couldn't even tolerate it. Now she's taking 30 grams, 6 scoops of the Zeocharge. So there's a good example of saying the low dose, disaster, not really working, making you feel worse. And then the higher dose, she's feeling incredible. So stuff like that. I mean, eyesight, people are emailing me saying their eyesight's improving, just all sorts of stuff. It's
really
just,
cool.
yeah, it can do so many things.
I have the first edition of the podcast. We interviewed the gal that is the CEO of True Diagnostics, which is a company that does DNA methylation, and they test your biological age versus your chronological age. And I haven't done my second follow-up test yet, but I'll make sure that I continue with my consistency with the Zeocharge and see what epigenetic markers change as well, because getting rid of those burdens and binding the sites with minerals and vitamins can only help with your metabolic health. So I'll be interested we'll maybe do a part 2 on that, Jeff, or part 3 on that. But I want to thank you for your time today. I appreciate your knowledge and your generosity of your time, and look forward to some future conversations with you.
Absolutely. Looking forward to next time. Thanks for having me.
Hi, thank you so much for watching our Age Reversing Blueprint podcast. If you've made it this far, we sincerely thank you for your attention and your interest in reversing your age. If you're looking to get more information on today's topic or other podcasts that we've had, be sure to check out the show notes and be sure to check out drjoelrosen.com. Have an awesome day.